I signed a contract about 7 months ago with this guy to get before to go to get permits. Anyway, he gave me a check of $8,000. It was an $87,000 job, and we still had to go get some permits. And in order for me to get permits, I had to go out and we had to make the city was requiring some changes that needed to be made. So we had our licensed engineer or structural engineer come out and do some work, and it cost extra money. But before you know it, we're still getting ready to start the job. Well, we've already spent that $8,000 check that he came to me and he says, okay, now it's time to go get that job to do the work. So I said, okay. I said, but you have to give us a deposit. So I already gave you $8,000. I said, he says, listen, we only want to spend 50 now. We don't want to spend the 80,000. We only want to spend 50. I said, well, we have a contract for 80-something thousand dollars. We're going to go do that job for you. And he goes, well, we don't want to do it now. I said, well, then you're canceling the contract. He said, if we cancel the contract, I want my money back. I said, no, you're done. You can't change the things.
Yeah,
later on down the line, you can't start changing things. You can't. And he's like, well, I got it. He says, while we were waiting, I asked somebody else what it would cost, and they said that they would do it for 50. I said, you have a signed contract with me.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
And and you're smart enough to know that. But I guarantee you there's a lot of guys that don't know that haven't been through the school of hard knocks like I've been through and you've been through in the 40-plus years we've been in business, that you succumb to that stupidness.
I don't go for any of that shit, Wayne. I'm telling you, I don't go for any of that. I don't let my clients try to bulldoze me, tell me what to do, how to work on things. I've told you there's so many stories. I talk about it during Talking Trash. I just don't. You guys can't. You got to do the same thing, but you got to start. It's easier to learn how to do it from a smaller level when people are trying to bulldoze you for a few $100s.
That's right.
You're
right, Darren. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're 100%.
No,
right,
go ahead.
Man. Because if you can figure it out early on in your business, a lot of times that mindset is, well, I'm small, I can do it cheaper. No, man, do not do that, because then that's a mistake most companies make. That's a mistake Wayne's Lawn Service made. We did it, I'm small, I can do it cheaper, 9 years. And then what happens is you get a database of customers that as you grow and your overhead grows and now you got to fix it, that are all under bid on this reoccurring service that we call mowing and fertilization and weed control. Now you got to go back and fix those guys. Those customers. And the frustration that brings is outrageous. I mean, it is. You look at you like, man, I've been busting my ass for 9 years and I ain't got nothing to show for it other than pain and suffering, a lot of sweat and getting galled walking around in the heat and blowing a fan on me at night so I can go back and do it again the next day. We got to be smarter.
I want to tell you, so we have a listener that started out, listened to you, listened to a bunch of people here, and took some of our advice and went out and started his own lighting company, right? He went out and he could have easily gone to this first customer and made a couple of $100 because he's just starting out and he doesn't have the overhead and he doesn't have the things that a regular normal business would have, but he wanted to get started. Instead, he stuck to his guns like he's supposed to, and he priced the job out the value of the job, so that he can turn around and take that money instead of just putting it in his pocket to buy himself dinner and maybe a night out with the movies with his wife. He can reinvest that money where it's supposed to go, and so that he can start building on that business. I was so proud of him to do that.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys are afraid to do that. Well, I'm small. I can afford it. I need the extra money so I can pay my bills. Screw that. You're gonna find the right client that's going to give you the value, that's gonna understand your value. I promise you.
Absolutely. And until something my dad taught me when I was 15 years old. I'm just guessing 15. I was young, mid-teens.
Too long ago.
A long time ago. But it's absolutely right. He was in sales his entire life, and he never was involved in the lawn service per se. He worked in corporate America in sales for some very large companies. He was out there and had good positions, and and so he trained me in selling. And I remember going back to being very young, mid-teens, he set me down one day and we were role playing, Darren. And this is what a lot of people hate to do in sales. But, and I always say it created a love-hate relationship between me and him, because no matter what he would ask me, I'd give the wrong answer, So, but I didn't appreciate it at the time, but what it did for me was help me understand that all he was doing was preparing me for the same objections that I was going to get in the real world when I was talking to somebody. And when it happened then, I wouldn't look like a deer in headlights, right? So he asked me one day, he says, Wayne, he says, what's the most, and before you answer this, Darren, don't answer it, okay? He said,
okay,
what's the most important thing in selling? And, at 15 years old and on 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, I didn't have the right perspective on what the most important thing in selling was. I was given what I thought were the right answers, like, establishing a relationship, doing what you tell your customer you're going to do, and all these other things, right, that would seem to make sense, okay? He said, those are all good answers, Wayne. He says, but that's not the most important thing in selling. I said, all right, well, what is it, Dad? He said, the most important thing in selling is you got to sell yourself first. You've got to be convinced that what you have to offer is what somebody needs to get, and know why. You're not selling. He says, people always say, you can sell ice water to an Eskimo. He said, a good salesman never sells ice water to an Eskimo. They listen to the Eskimo and that find out that Eskimo's thirsty, and they satisfy a need or a want.
Yeah.
It's that simple. But he said, you got to sell yourself first. He said, because if you don't believe that what you have to offer is different and better than what your competitor has to offer, you've lost before you ever walk in the door.